again. In the last video we pre-turned a bowl from green wood, wet wood. And it has dried now, and here it is. The bowl is not half the weight as it was, and it's gone a bit oval in shape, although you don't see it very well. But if I measure, there's a centimeter difference between this way and measure this way. And we want to make it round again. This bowl has not warped that much, but there are also examples of warping a bit more, like this one.
Whoa, what happened here?
This is London plain sycamore, I think, and something. Well, there was a burr on this side, I think. So that is warped quite a bit. This is what you see most of the time. It's a bit bigger bowl. And here you see what happens often. It has gone a bit oval in shape. Over here it is much less diameter than over here. If I measure it, it is 44.5, and over here it is 42.5. And what you also see is there's a bump over there, because the sides of the bowl have just dropped down a little bit. So how do I put this onto my lathe? Well, I put it onto the lathe like this. I find the high spots, which in this case aren't very much.
High spots?
The high spots of the rim.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They are normally here where the pith was, and I place it against these, well, how do I call it? This plate. Mm-hmm. And I eyeball it so that it is in the middle. Must be somewhere around there. And if I look at the gap between the bowl and the tool rest, I can see how much material I have to get rid of in the first cut. Because my aim now is to do 2 cuts and then it is finished. 1 cut, 1 rough cut, taking all the excessive material away, and 1 fine cut, leaving a smooth finish. First cut is with the bowl gouge we used in the last video where we did the roughing. It's the rough cut. And the fine cut I do with a also a bowl gouge, a bit thinner. Not so thick, it's a 13mm bowl gouge. And it has a sharper grinding angle and a very short bevel. I'll explain later. First, the rough cut. As you see, I don't have to remove much material to get it round again. So it's not going to be a very heavy cut. Now there's no more untouched spots in the surface. Now for the fine cut. Okay, there we go. There's a big chance it doesn't work, because you have to be in a sort of a flow to do it in 2 cuts. And now Lisa's here, so I'm always a little bit nervous. And it's only 1 bowl we do, It goes better if you do several behind each other. But anyway, 2 cuts, it's the aim, not saying it works. Not perfect, but good enough. We have to make a new foot on the bowl now, because if I would grab it in this foot to do the inside, to turn the inside, it will not sit properly in the chuck, because the tenon, of course, is also gone oval in shape. Let me get a caliper. Ah, here is a caliper. So in this direction it is 105. And here it is 108. 104, 108. 108, 104. So that's not going to give us a very snug fit. So let's do that again. That line marks the next jaws. Great. Turn it around, put it in a chuck. And if I have made a perfect tenon on it, you should notice that if I now start the lathe, it should run very smoothly. Don't mind this here, that's wobbling a little bit. This is running very smoothly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Me too.
Good. Then we agree. Then we can do the inside. First, the rough cut again. There we go again, Lies.
Wow. Pretty amazing. I thought it was a nice cut.
It worked out pretty good, yeah. So you often see on the end grain spots, so this is the end grain spot. And on the part before the end grain spot, you often see that the fibers are torn out a little bit. Over here you will see the same, I hope. Yes, you do. That's this part. Feels a bit rough. The way to get that out is have a little same procedure as I used on the outside, but then on the inside. A sharp cutting edge, 45-degree angle between the cutting edge and the wood, and I go in like that, leave the bevel rubbing, and I can't go any further than over there because then I have too much overhang over here, and besides that the bowl gouge is against the rim.
Is this a push cut?
Yeah, it's a push cut.
Yeah!
I'm amazed. It is a push cut. Before I had the 16 millimeter bowl gouge that did the big cuts. Now I'm into fine cuts, so I have a finer bowl gouge and also a different cutting edge over here. Cutting angle, sorry, grinding angle. The angle here is 45 degrees, just under 45 degrees. Therefore it is on this bowl gouge, the angle here is about 55 degrees. Also, this is not a fingernail, but the wings are at 45 degrees. So if I put the tip of this bowl gouge against the wood like this, let me put it away from the pencil lines, you see that there is a 45-degree line here with the wood falling in like that, which gives me the best cutting result. Now you might think, whoa, that's the wrong side of the gouge. Yes, it is. But it gives me the opportunity to cut in this 45-degree angle. If I start in this position at the rim of my bowl, it will be a huge catch. Why? There's no support here for the bevel. As soon as I'm in the wood, the cut is supported by the bevel. But over here, it isn't. That's why I go in like this, cutting on the downside wing of my bowl gouge. Go in like this, and as soon as I'm in, I keep the bevel rubbing, but turn the flute open and go in deeper. There we go. Look. What we have here now is a very smooth finish, and even this knot we just cut as if it was not there. Here the end grain spots are done now, so I can pick up my cut with my normal fingernail gouge. Most of the time it works, and if it doesn't work, I will show you another option to do. It worked with my fingernail gouge, but what I often do, and this often goes depending depending on the type of wood and how deep I can get in with my tool rest. Sometimes I have pretty much overhang over there. What I like to do then is to use this woodcut tool. It's 19 millimeter. It has a 19 millimeter steel bar and a changeable tip with a very short flute, which means it hardly vibrates. Also, if you have the tool rest somewhere here, it still doesn't vibrate if you make it a nice cut. And the angle I have grained it on that is a very steep angle, so I can lay the bevel on the bottom, and then the position of the handle is like this.
All right.
So, well, let's make this. It's smooth now, but let's make another cut with this one.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's nice and clean, crisp cut. You also see that the handle is quite long, so I can hold it against my body while I go in with the gouge horizontally. I made this myself, by the way. Look at that. Drilling is quite difficult. Only the rim we still have to do, because that's still rough. So let's do that. I thought I started with this one, but let me first take this one, because I have to get rid of at least 4 millimeters. I have a nice crispy edge on the inside, but also on the outside of the bowl. Why is the lathe making noises? This also is a very crispy edge, and if I take the bowl off the table or I put it on the table and I hit something, it will be immediately damaged, and that'll be, well, you don't want that. So let me round this off a little bit. I'm not going to make a cut to do it, but just some scraping, very light scraping with the bowl gouge on its side. So it's not cutting, it's just scraping, and make a little move around the corner. There we go. So I'm using this wing, not this one, this wing, but the other wing is pretty close to the wood. And that's it already. Time to do some sanding. I can do this, of course, by having a piece of sandpaper and just let the bowl turn and having my piece of paper over there, but then I will make lines next to each other. A better way to do it is to spin the sanding paper around so it makes all little curlies on the wood. And if the wood is spinning like that, I want the sandpaper to turn in the opposite direction. So this one goes in that direction and this one goes in the opposite direction. And we can't do that without a dust mask, of course, but also we need We
Our
need-
little friend.
Yeah, our little friend, but you're in the way. If I'm done sanding with my first grit, I don't want to feel any marks, so I can go to my next grit. In this case, 180, but I had to do so little sanding actually that I could have started with 180. You see, you need a steady support for your angled drill. I'm still working on that, but with a lot of wine and nuts, it's going to be all right in a few years.
$120, $80.
240.
Now,
320.
20.
Yeah, it's the last one.
Looks nice.
What I normally would do now is finish it with a lacquer or an oil or a wax or whatever. In this case it is very light wood. So I have my own new product now, no visible oil.
No visible.
Yes, no visible oil. It works great on these light colored woods. But I also want to show you how I take the foot off. The tenon off, and I can't now finish it with the no visible oil and then take the foot off because the oil has to dry, of course. And Lise didn't want to stay here overnight and finish tomorrow, so we'll do it like this. I will take the foot off and I will then put it in a no visible oil and send Lise a picture of the bowl finished with a no visible oil, and you can see the difference.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't see the difference. That's the whole thing about this oil. Let me take it out and let's turn the foot off. Just to be sure, we could measure how much wall thickness we have. Because every 2 weeks I get a... Shall I put this... Let me put this thing off.
Better.
Thank you.
Hello. With your rucksack.
Every month I get a picture of a bowl that is, let's say, from this kind of wood, and then in the middle here there's another piece of wood. It's glued in because the bottom was too thin. I have developed a device to measure the bottom thickness. I did that together with NASA. Probably you can buy it in the shop within a few months. And then I put my measuring device on the bottom of the bowl again, and I can measure here what thickness bottom I have. So that leaves me enough room to make the bottom a little bit concave. if I make it perfectly flat and the wood moves a little bit, your bowl will be wobbling on the table maybe, and you don't want that. So let's... 1 millimeter is enough already to stop it from wobbling. It's the same plate as we used for for fine turning, for the second time turning the outside of the bowl. And now I put it back on this plate again to take this tenon off. It doesn't bother me if it moves a little bit here, because I'm only going to be working on the underside of the bowl. Same procedure again. Few rough cuts and one fine cut. You see there's a little bit of movement. I don't mind. It's just a tiny checking if the bowl is a little bit, the bottom is a little bit concave. And it is, you can see, so the bowl is, when I put it on the table, it's just standing on the outer rim. And now it only leaves me this little thing to take out. I have to do that by hand. So some sanding. I start with 320. This is the best part of turning bowls, looking what you have done and hoping that you're satisfied. And it's funny always to see that the imperfections in wood always give these pieces their own style. I like this, maybe you don't, but
I like it too. Yeah.
I like to see these kind of things. What I like a bit less is that you see here these blue spots. Blue, black, they are probably, or it is because of there were nails in the trees, but I think these ones came because the wood was laying down wet too long. It's not dried properly, and then you can get these blue, green, black spots. So you see, making a bowl is quite easy. Even I can do it, and you don't need that much tools to do it. So go ahead and make some bowls, and if you have problems, just put your question underneath here, underneath this video, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Be sure, if you make the first bowl in your career, wear a face shield, so that I can say hi to you again in the next video. Bye.